This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Peace on Earth, Goodwill to Dogs by Eleanor Hollowell Abbott. This reading by Allison Hester of Athens, Georgia. Part 2. As though the word were wings, the lay reader snatched his hat and sped out into the night. It was astonishing how all the warm, housey air seemed to rush out with him, and all the shivery frost rush back. A little bit listlessly, Flame dragged down the bandage from her eyes.
"It must be the creaks on the stairs that make it so awfully lonely all of a sudden," argued Flame. "It must be because the dogs snore so. No mere man could make it so empty."
With a precipitous nudge of the memory, she dashed to the door and helloed to the fast retreating figure.
"Oh, Bertrand, Bertrand!" she called. "I got sort of mixed up. It's the second door on the left, and if you don't find 'em there, you'd better go up in Mother's room and turn out the silver chest. Hurry!"
Rallying back to the bright Christmas kitchen for the real business at hand, an accusing blush rose to the young spot where the dimple had been.
"Oh, shucks!" parried Flame. "I kissed a bishop before I was 5. What's a lay reader?"
As one humanely willing to condone the future as well as the past, she rolled up her white sleeves without further introspection, and dragged out from the protecting shadow of the sink the humpiest box which had so excited her emotions at home in an earlier hour of the day. Crackling under her eager fingers, the clumsy cover slid off, exposing once more to her enraptured gaze the gay-colored muslin layer of animal masks leering fatuously up at her. Only with her hand across her mouth did she keep from crying out. Very swiftly her glance traveled from the grinning muslin faces before her to the solemn fur faces on the other side of the room. The hand across her mouth tightened.
"Why, it's something like creation!" she giggled. "This having to decide which face to give to which animal."
As expeditiously as possible she made her selection.
"Poor Miss Flora must be so tired of being plain," she thought. "I'll give her the first choice of everything, something really lovely. It can't help resting her."
With this kind idea in mind, she selected for Miss Flora a canary's face, softly yellow, bland as a treacle, its swelling, tender muslin throat fairly reeking with the suggestion of innocent song. No one gazing upon such an ornithological purity would ever speak a harsh word again, even to a sparrow. Nudging Miss Flora cautiously from her sonorous nap, Flame beguiled her with half a doughnut to her appointed chair, boosted her still cautiously to her pinnacle of books, with a various swift adjustment of fasteners, knotting of tie strings, an extra breathing hole jabbed through the beak, slipped the canary's beautiful blonde countenance over Miss Flora's frankly grizzled mug. For a single terrifying instant Miss Flora's crinkled sides tightened, a snarl like ripped silk slipped through her straining lungs. Then, once convinced that the mask was not a gas box, she accepted the liberty with reasonable sang-froid, and sat blinking beadily out through the canary's yellow-rimmed eye sockets with frank curiosity towards such proceedings as were about to follow. It was easy to see she was accustomed to sitting in chairs. For the wolfhound, Flame chose a giraffe's head. Certain anatomical similarities seemed to make the choice wise. With a long, vividly striped stockinette neck wrinkling like a mousquetaire glove, the neat small head that so closely fitted his own neat small head, the tweaked, interrogative ears, beautiful, lovely, the wolfhound reared up majestically in his own chair. He also, once convinced that the mask was not a gas box, resigned himself to the inevitable, incorporeal independent of such vain props as chemistries or sermons, lolled his fine height against the mahogany chair back. To Blunderblot, the trim Dalmatian, Flame assigned the parrot's head, arrogantly beaked, gorgeously variegated, altogether querulous. For Lopsy, the crafty setter, she selected a white rabbit's artless, pink-eared visage. Yet, out of the whole box of masks it had been the Bengal tiger's fiercely bewhiskered visage that had fascinated Flame the most. Regretfully, from its more or less nondescript companions, she picked up the Bengal tiger now and pulled at its real Bristol ears. In one of the chairs a dog stirred quite irrelevantly. Cocking her own head towards the woodshed, Flame could not be perfectly sure whether she heard a twinge of cat or a twinge of conscience. The unflinching glare of the Bengal tiger only served to increase her self-reproach.
After all, reasoned Flame, it would be easy enough to set another place and pile a few extra books. I'm almost sure I saw a black plush bag in the parlor. If the cat could be put in something like a black plush bag, something perfectly enveloping like that, so that not a single line of its figure could be observed, and it had a new head given on it, a perfectly sufficient head, like a Bengal tiger, I see no reason why.
In 5 minutes the deed was accomplished. Its lovely sinuous figure reduced to the stolid contour of a black plush work-bag, its small uneasy head thrust into the roomy muslin cranium of the Bengal tiger, the astonished cat found herself slumping soggily on a great teetering pile of books, staring down as best she might through the Bengal tiger's ear at the weirdest assemblage of animals which any domestic cat of her acquaintance had ever been forced to contemplate. Coincidental with the appearance of the cat, a faint thrill passed through the rest of the company. Nothing very much, no more, no less, indeed, than passes through any company at the introduction of purely extraneous matter. From the empty plate which she had commandeered as a temporary pillow, the yellow canary lifted an interrogative beak. That was all. At Flame's left, the white-haired rabbit emitted an incongruous bark, scarcely worth reporting. Across the table the giraffe thumped a white plumy tail. Thoughtfully the parrot's hooked nose slanted slightly to one side.
"Oh, I wish Bertrand would come," fretted Flame. "Maybe this time he'll notice my Christmas crossing sign."
She chuckled with sudden triumph.
"Talk about surprises!"
Very diplomatically as she spoke, she broke another doughnut in two and drew all the dog's attention to herself. Almost hysterical with amusement, she surveyed the scene before her.
"Well, at least we can have grace before the preacher comes."
She laughed. A step on the gravel walk startled her suddenly. In a flash she had jerked down the blindfolding handkerchief across her eyes again, and folding her hands and the doughnut before her, burst softly into paraphrase.
"Now we sit us down to eat thrice our share of flesh and sweet. If we should burst before we're through, oh, what in dogdom shall we do?"
Thus it was that the master of the house, returning unexpectedly to his familiar domicile, stumbled upon the scene that might have shaken the reason of a less sober man. Startled at first by the unwonted illumination from his kitchen windows, and second by the unprecedented aroma of fir balsam that greeted him even through the keyhole of his new front door, his feelings may well be imagined when groping through the dingy hall he first beheld the gallows-like structure reared in the kitchen doorway. "My God!" he ejaculated. "Barrett is getting ready to hang himself! Gone mad, probably, or something!" Curdled with horror he forced himself to the object, only to note with convulsive relief, but increasing bewilderment, the cheerful phrasing and the ultimate intent of the structure itself. "Christmas crossing?" he repeated blankly. "Look out for surprises. Shop, cook, and glisten?" With his hand across his eyes he reeled back slightly against the wall. "It is I that have gone mad!" he gasped. A little uncertain whether he was afraid of what he was about to see, or whether what he was about to see ought to be afraid of him, he craned his neck as best he could to round the corner of the huge buffet that blocked the kitchen vista. A fresh bewilderment met his eyes. Where he had once seen cobwebs flapping grayly across the chimney breast loomed now the gay worsted